You are at the greatest breaking point of your life, but you haven't realized it yet. Perhaps you just feel that constant restlessness, like a low vibration that never stops, a hum in the back of your mind that insists on reminding you that something fundamental has changed and you're still trying to live as if nothing happened. You wake up in the morning, and for a few seconds before grabbing your phone, there's a strange, almost eerie silence. That's when reality hits. You no longer know who you are when you're not connected. You no longer know what you want when there's no screen telling you what to desire. You no longer know how to feel when there's no algorithm suggesting your emotions. This isn't just a rough phase you're going through. It's not work stress or the fatigue of adulthood. It's something much deeper and far more revolutionary than we realize. You are experiencing the first complete ontological rupture in human history. And once you understand exactly what that means, everything will change in how you see yourself and the world. For thousands of years, human beings underwent gradual transformations. We learned to master fire, developed agriculture, created cities, built empires. Each change was significant, but there was always an essential continuity. We knew who we were in relation to the world around us. A nomadic hunter knew exactly what his role in the group was and how his survival depended on specific skills developed over decades. A medieval farmer understood his place in the social and cosmic order with clarity about his position between the land and the divine. Even during the Industrial Revolution, when millions moved from the countryside to cities, the transition preserved fundamental elements of human identity. You still knew you were a physical body, working in a physical world, creating tangible objects that real people would use for real needs. But something entirely different has happened in the last 2 decades. It wasn't an evolution. It was a rupture. For the first time in history, an entire generation of humans began to exist simultaneously in 2 parallel realities operating under completely different logics. In the physical world, you are still a biological organism with basic material needs. You need to eat, sleep, connect in person, move your body, feel textures and temperatures. But in the digital world, you have become something entirely new. A set of behavioral data, a source of attention to be captured, a pattern of clicks and preferences that can be predicted and manipulated by systems that know you better than you know yourself. And here lies the central problem. No one taught us how to integrate these 2 identities or even how to recognize that they are fundamentally different. Think about how you make decisions today. When you need to choose a restaurant, you no longer rely on your hunger or cravings. You open an app and let an algorithm fed by the consumption patterns of millions of people you've never met decide where you should eat. When you feel a strong emotion, your first reaction is no longer to process it internally or talk to someone close. It's to turn it into content for social media, wait for others' reactions, and use those reactions to determine whether what you feel is valid or not. When you face a complex problem in your life, you no longer rely on your accumulated experience, the wisdom of older people, or silent reflection. You search online and let the hierarchy of search results, determined by commercial algorithms, define what solutions you should consider and in what order of importance. What Yuval Harari understood before many of us is that this is not just a technological change, it is an ontological shift. We are no longer autonomous agents of our own lives. We are becoming nodes in a data processing network. We no longer control the flow of information that reaches us. We are controlled by it. We no longer choose our experiences. They are chosen for us by systems designed to maximize our screen time and consumption. We no longer define our values based on personal reflection and lived experience. They emerge from digital echo chambers where we have been algorithmically placed. The rupture you are experiencing is not a personal problem that can be fixed with more willpower or better organization. It is a civilizational phenomenon that is restructuring the very nature of human consciousness. Your grandparents instantly knew when they were being manipulated because it was done face to face by other humans with body language and intentions that could be detected. You are being manipulated by artificial intelligence systems that know your neural patterns better than you do, that can predict your behavior with frightening precision, and that were programmed by other AIs for purposes no human fully understands. I need to pause for a moment and ask you directly, which aspect of this transformation we're living through most unsettles you or gives you the sense that you've lost control? Do you also sometimes feel that you can't think clearly when you're away from your screens? I know we often keep these anxieties to ourselves, perhaps out of fear of sounding paranoid in a world that celebrates every new technology as progress. But your concerns are valid and probably shared by more people than you think. Share in the comments. My biggest concern about how technology is changing who I am is. Your voice might help create a space where we can honestly discuss these transformations instead of pretending they're not happening. And maybe by naming these changes together, we can start to figure out how to navigate them with more awareness. But here is the part that Harari considers most crucial. This rupture is not necessarily a catastrophe. It is an evolutionary opportunity disguised as an existential crisis. For the first time in history, we have the chance to consciously choose what kind of beings we want to become. All previous generations simply inherited their humanity as a biological and cultural fact. We are the first generation that can actively design our own cognitive and social evolution, but only if we understand exactly what's happening to us and only if we make intentional decisions about how we want this transformation to unfold. Consider for a moment the fascinating paradox of your current situation. You have access to more information than any human in history, but probably feel less able to make important decisions about your life. You can instantly communicate with people anywhere in the world, yet probably feel more isolated and misunderstood than previous generations who only had a few neighbors and relatives to talk to. You can learn any skill through online tutorials, but likely feel less competent and confident than medieval artisans who mastered just one technique in their entire lives. This is not an accidental contradiction. It is the predictable result of trying to use a mental architecture designed for small hunter-gatherer groups to navigate an environment of infinite stimuli and possibilities. The rupture you are experiencing is fundamentally the difference between living in an environment where your mental capacities evolve to thrive and living in a completely artificial environment that systematically exploits the vulnerabilities of those same capacities. Your brain was shaped over millions of years to detect patterns in small amounts of information highly relevant to your immediate survival. Now it is bombarded with trillions of bits of irrelevant but hypnotically stimulating data that hijack the same neural circuits your ancestors used to detect predators and hunting opportunities. Your emotional system was calibrated to form deep bonds with a few dozen people you would know throughout your life. Now it is asked to process hundreds of different personalities every day through screens, creating a kind of social exhaustion that didn't exist before the digital age. But Harari offers us a revolutionary perspective on this situation. Instead of seeing the rupture as a loss of original human authenticity, we can understand it as the first real opportunity our species has had to transcend the limitations of our biological programming. Throughout human history, we were prisoners of instincts and mental patterns that made sense in ancestral environments, but often sabotaged us in civilizational contexts. Our tribal tendencies helped us survive in small groups, but created devastating wars between nations. Our cognitive biases allowed us to make quick decisions when every second counted, but made us vulnerable to political and commercial manipulation. Our need for simple narratives helped us coordinate collective actions, but prevented us from understanding complex systems like the global economy and climate change. Now, for the first time, we have tools that can show us exactly how our mind works and how it can be expanded. Artificial intelligence is not just an external technology. It is a mirror that reveals the hidden patterns of our own mental processing. When you realize that an algorithm can predict your choices better than you can, it doesn't mean you've lost your autonomy. It means you can begin to understand the unconscious mechanisms that have always governed your behavior, and for the first time, consciously choose whether you want to continue being ruled by them. The real rupture isn't happening between you and technology. It's happening between the version of you that automatically reacts to environmental stimuli and the version of you that can observe those automatic patterns and decide how to respond to them. This is a fundamental qualitative difference that separates our era from all others. Past generations had philosophies and spiritual practices that tried to cultivate this observing awareness, but only a few exceptional individuals managed to develop it consistently. Now, out of evolutionary necessity, this capacity for metacognition is becoming a basic survival skill for anyone who wants to retain some degree of autonomy in a world of intelligent systems. Think about how your relationship with your own mind has changed since you started carrying a smartphone. Before, when you had a thought or a curiosity, there was a natural space for contemplation where the idea could develop, connect with other knowledge you already possessed, or simply dissolve if it wasn't truly important. Now, any thought is immediately externalized into an online search where it is colonized by commercial algorithms that turn your curiosity into behavioral data and your attention into advertising revenue. You've lost intimate contact with the natural process of your own cognition. But simultaneously, you've gained access to an infinite library of human knowledge and analytical tools that can dramatically expand your ability to understand complex systems. The secret to navigating this rupture is not to try to return to a previous state of human purity, which in any case was never as pure as we imagine. It's learning to intentionally use the new capabilities technology offers while maintaining awareness of the processes it attempts to automate. It's about developing a form of hybrid intelligence where you remain the central agent of your decisions, but use artificial systems as amplified extensions of your natural cognitive abilities. This requires a revolution in how you relate to information, attention, and your own identity. Instead of passively consuming algorithmically selected content, you need to actively curate your sources of information based on clear goals for personal growth and understanding of the world. Instead of allowing notifications to fragment your attention into hundreds of disconnected micro moments, you must cultivate the ability to sustain prolonged focus on the questions that truly matter to you, instead of deriving your self-image from the reactions you receive on social platforms. You need to develop a direct and unmediated relationship with your own values, needs, and aspirations. But perhaps the most radical change lies in your relationship with uncertainty and control. The rupture you're experiencing includes the painful realization that you never had as much control over your life as you thought. Your tastes, your opinions, your relationships, your professional choices have always been influenced by forces you didn't fully understand: family, culture, economy, biology, chance. The difference now is that these influences have become visible and measurable through data. You can see exactly how your attention is captured, how your emotions are manipulated, how your decisions are directed. This is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it destroys the illusion that you are a completely autonomous agent commanding your own existence. Liberating because once you understand the mechanisms of influence, you can begin to consciously choose which ones to accept and which to reject. You can design your informational environment in a way that cultivates the mental qualities you want to develop. You can use technology to amplify your wisdom rather than exploit your vulnerabilities. Harari argues that we are living through the most dangerous and most promising moment in human history simultaneously. Dangerous because we can easily become unconscious slaves to systems we don't understand, losing any capacity for genuine self-determination. Promising because if we navigate this transition consciously, we can become the first generation of truly free humans, free not only from external limitations like poverty and disease, but also from the internal limitations of our own unconscious mental programming. The rupture you're feeling is the symptom of being born into a new form of consciousness. Like any birth, it's uncomfortable, disorienting, and sometimes frightening. But it is also the only way to emerge into a more expansive and more meaningful reality than the one you left behind. The world being created by emerging technologies will not be habitable for old forms of consciousness. Either we evolve into more conscious and intentional forms of being human, or we become obsolete in our own civilization. This doesn't mean you need to become a tech expert or abandon every analog aspect of life. It means you need to become an expert in your own mind, understand how it processes information, how it forms beliefs, how it makes decisions, how it creates meaning. It means developing the ability to observe your own mental patterns in real time and consciously choose how to respond to your environment's stimuli. It means cultivating a form of presence that cannot be captured by algorithms because it is based on a quality of attention that transcends any specific content. The good news is that you already possess all the necessary capacities to make this transition. The capacity for observational awareness, metacognitive reflection, and intentional choice are natural potentials of the human mind that have only been partially developed in most people until now. The evolutionary pressure of the digital age is forcing these potentials to emerge on a collective scale. You are not broken or unfit for this historical moment. You are being invited to become more fully human than any previous generation has had the opportunity to be. If these reflections touched something you've been feeling, but perhaps hadn't found the words to express, know that you are not alone. By subscribing to the channel, you will connect with a growing community of people who share your concerns and your desire for a deeper understanding of the philosophical challenges of our time. Each week, we meet here to explore the big questions that define our era and to seek not just understanding, but wiser ways of living amid the transformations we are witnessing. This is not just a channel, but a space for dialogue and collective growth. Join us in this ongoing journey. Subscribe so we can continue this essential conversation about how to live with greater wisdom and purpose in a world that often leaves us disoriented and divided. The rupture you're experiencing is not an end, it's a beginning. It's the beginning of a more mature and conscious way of being human. And when you look back a few years from now, you will realize that this moment of disorientation and unrest was exactly what you needed to become who you truly are. Experts in nuclear physics, for instance, get their orders from the people who are experts in Shiite theology, or in Jewish theology, or in communist ideology, or in Nazi ideology. If you have a single physicist, she is the most brilliant physicist in history, and she knows that E equals mc squared and all the secrets of quantum mechanics and whatever, she cannot produce an atom bomb by herself, working in her garage or something. You need people to mine uranium, thousands of kilometers away. You need engineers and workers to build the nuclear reactor. You need people to produce food so that all these workers and physicists have something to eat. How do you get millions of people to cooperate on the project? If you just tell them the facts of physics, it doesn't work. So what? Just because E equals mc squared, we should now work on building this atom bomb? No. This is where ideology and mythology and fictions come into the picture. You usually convince millions of people to work on a project together by telling them some ideology or some mythology. And here the facts don't matter so much. If you try to build a very powerful ideology and you ignore the facts, your ideology is still likely to explode with a very, very big bang. The people who are experts in the truth usually get orders from the people who are experts in order. And this is something that very often scientists and engineers don't understand, that they work and they think that the scientists and the engineers will decide what to do with it. But no, once you produce this very powerful technology because you know the facts about the world, then you will get the people who are expert in mythology and theology coming in and telling you, thank you very much for producing this very powerful technology. Now we will decide.
Are you positive, are you optimistic, or are you pessimistic for our future? I know it's a hard question.
I try to be a realist. I mean, basically, optimism is like saying, oh, everything will be okay. And pessimism, no, we are all doomed. Both these positions, they make us abdicate responsibility. If in the end everything will be okay, why bother? You don't need to take action. And it's the same if we are doomed, so why waste whatever little time we have on taking action? Realism is understanding that we have, as human beings, as a human species, we still have the resources, the technology, the wisdom to deal with major challenges, whether it's climate change or whether it's the rise of AI.
A lot of people hear AI, artificial intelligence, they think that intelligence is somehow connected to truth. So a super intelligent AI will have a kind of super access to truth. No, intelligence is not about truth. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems, to define goals and solve problems on the way to the goal. The truth is one of the things that can help you do that, but not the only one. And we have seen with human beings that human beings until today have been the most intelligent animals, entities on the planet. And at the same time, we have also been the most delusional entities on the planet. We believe nonsensical things that no chimpanzee and no dog and no horse would ever believe. And a super intelligence is very likely to be super delusional, even more deluded than we are. So we would need a very strong ethical basis, a very strong basis of values, more than even before, because the challenges are bigger.